Expansions. The go-to next step for every board game developer. You launch a game, the hype wanes, and the money dries up. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. How predictable. We deserve better. I discovered something so that game developers don't have to endlessly pump out expansions. Oh, the virus. But what is a board game virus? What are hacks? And will this really reignite players back to the table with a different take on the same game? Now, let's write a virus, shall we? There it is, the world's first board game virus. Author, me! Hold up for a second. Hi, I'm Bones Jones, a master board game hacker who ruthlessly tests games so that you, the creator, can unleash their true potential. And I've been doing it for years. And now, an 8-minute word from our sponsors. Just kidding. I've been making videos on testing, hacking, high noon for over a year now.
More about this game in a minute. Stick around for my design challenge. It's a toughie, but you'll love it.
This is the final episode in the series, but don't worry.
Watching the previous episodes is not necessary.
Now, let's get back to the board game virus and one of the wildest game design exploits I've ever discovered. But there's also this. Just a standard deck from this game. But if we cut it, well, it almost becomes more terrifying than our little virus over here. But in order to make any of this make any sense, we're gonna have to go back over 1 year ago. See, today's the day that Dwight Seanock's little baby High Noon successfully kickstarted. It's a Wild West shootout strategy game that feels a lot like a video game. But nobody wants to be made a fool on Kickstarter Bubbly Day. So he searched us out, the most ruthless game testers in existence, and fired over a copy. When we're done, your game will reign supreme. Dwight knew that deep down inside, his rulebook read like 6-player Twilight Imperium after 2 hours. A complete mess. So I kicked off the video series by playing through the game from the perspective of one of its main characters, the leader of the Leroy Gang posse, Quentin Leroy, all the while exposing the obvious and not so obvious hacks found throughout. But what's a hack? My IG got hacked. You got phished, Christopher. You gotta stop clicking on email links. But when it comes to board gaming, the term hacks means a broader name given to all of these different categories highlighting the game's boo-boos. But back to the storyline. See, the game starts with Quentin and his gang mid-bank robbery. They're trying to fund a future big-time train heist so the gang can exit from crime for good. Quentin and James, their brothers, also want one teeny tiny thing from the sheriff. Revenge for him killing their parents when they were young boys. Listen, I'm a hacker, and I see the world very differently. For instance, gamers see this rulebook as a hot, steaming, poorly executed pile of sizzling garbage. But not me. No. I see a hot, steamy, sizzling, giant door-sized hole in the fabric of this game, where I can walk in and do whatever I want. Actually, I found this many hot, steamy, giant, door-shaped sized holes, and the biggest ones are yet to come. Welcome to the middle of Quentin Leroy's final turn. He's left with 2 inventory cards, and this one has never been revealed. With his gang and brother James all dead. Quentin's barely alive with 1 health, standing next to Sheriff Garrett and the exploded insides of his lackey, Deputy Gates. And due to our coffee exploit, Quentin still has 1 action left. Well, who do we have here? My apologies for the mess, but your lackey couldn't hold himself together. I love how conveniently you've arrived. What do you get when you take Sheriff Garrett and you add an explosive round? My last revenge. Oh, it's you again. How many times have we met now? Oh, it's you. It's you again. It's you again. Virus. Have you ever seen a game that comes with 20 10-sided dice? But none of them are ever rolled, not even once. I'm not talking about High Noon, it doesn't have dice. The use of these 20 dice is a rather clever trick found inside WarBonds. Much like High Noon, it's a character-based strategy game. You know what else is a rather clever trick? How I turned this card from High Noon into an exploit. A tipsy, almost god mode exploit. Cheers. Exploits. Hacks. The tiniest of issues.
Board game creators, they send me their games all the time. Some of them quite desperately, like this.
Help me, Ponesy One Kenobi. You're my only hope. Okay, cut. Bro, we're done. I'm only giving you the dollar we agreed upon, okay? Let's use WarBonds for an example, and I'll show you where they goof. But first, what they did right and how they utilized all these dice without ever rolling them. Game starts, you select your warlord and hit up the battle board. Recruit and attempt to keep loyal various warrior followers as you vie to eliminate the enemy player. You'll like it if you really like heavier strategy games. And you'll really like this. The most boring looking piece of this game. See, every character on this board is also linked to this one. So you'll never hear, "It's your turn." This game doesn't have any traditional turns. And every round plays out based on the ordered position on the chart. The faster the character, the sooner it gets to play. Elite level mechanism right there. But what about the bad? No, I did not put this game through our gauntlet testing. But I think we can all agree that if you're not sucked into the board game's universe, then the experience tends to fall flat. Notice the lack of character images on the tiles, the frankly unappealing chart, the boring battle map, the muted box colors. Yeah, so I took a swing at some of these graphics, and I don't think it's too much work to make this game look pretty darn good. See, there's absolutely nothing random about this game, including these dice. They'd be better off colored red though, because instead of rolling, these dice are set to a specific number to track the health of your characters. You guys ever done this before? Testing your reflexes? Whoa, that was a close one. Okay, let's try just a little bit harder. Yeah, I didn't kick the camera. I sure made it look like I did though. See, the camera's way back there. And that's what it's like to be me, a board game hacker. While reading the rules for a game, my mind instantly gets hijacked, like a reflex. And the deceitful little exploit stands center stage. I can't help it. Welcome to the High Noon Whiskey Shot exploit. But firstly, what does this card do anyway? At any time for free, you can get back 2 health per spent card. And there's 5 of these bad boys. Liver failing kinda powerful. A name appears at the bottom of every posse card and describes who's allowed to use it. Pretty obvious that this Boozahole card is meant to not break the game by only being played with the faceless characters of the Leroy Gang posse. But I'm a fairly disagreeable person. I care less about how it was meant to be played and more about how it's written. Now, let's turn to page 7 and 14, referencing Quentin and his posse as a whole as the Leroy Gang. Back at the deck with cards for everyone in the posse, Leroy Gang. So who exactly doesn't get to use this card? So much ambiguity. Because from the looks of it, I can just stack all these on Quentin, regaining 10 health for free. But back to the board game virus. Yes, I can get a bit obsessed. You'll see why in a second. But first, what is a board game virus? What is your name? African or European? Hold up. Let's start by explaining what a computer virus is. A computer virus is code written to exploit holes in a computer's security. And they be nasty. Like portaling your data into oblivion, blanking out your screen, or even time dilating your computer back to the speed of the 90s as your face peels off while waiting 12 minutes for your system to boot and your start menu click to finally register. Shut down. Okay, so what is a board game virus then? If a virus exploits weaknesses in a computer, then a board game virus exploits issues and inconsistencies, hacks, found within a game and its rules. Remember when I said I could get obsessive? I sat down and found every single hack within High Noon. Then I created a one-man posse to exploit them all. The virus.
Now we're having fun.
And you may have noticed, as a close follower of the series, that my new virus posse has been present this entire time. First things first, in this game, every character needs a way to eliminate their enemies. Pistols, rifles, a bow, hell, even tomahawks. But since this game has no dice, I decided to lean in hard by designing this. A phase-changing pistol. A glowing-in-the-dark thing of beauty. But what about the greenish hourglass horizontally accosting its side?
The most mind-blowing part of this character, and a near impossible feat to pull off in a board game, time travel.
That's all coming up in a minute, but for now, let's see what this virus is capable of. There are 4 areas of note for our virus posse: combat, hacks, going dark, and time dilation. It all starts with these dice and a completely blank deck of cards. We'll continue with all these in a minute.
Last we left off, Quentin just drank himself to heal and is chiming to pepper the sheriff with all sorts of revenge.
I am feeling brand new. See, the problem, Sheriff, drink, is that you done messed up, murdering my parents in front of my 8-year-old eyes. You missed one thing though. Killing me! Even after downing that entire bottle of booze, the one that you spilt all over the gravel just there, my turn still has one action left. Say hello to that explosive round for me. It's not enough, and he knows it's not enough. Look, his attack plus the explosive round, Quentin is still missing 4 damage. No revenge, Sheriff walks. Or does he? Maybe Quentin's been using an overpowered strat, outmaneuvering all the other players for the entire game.
But do you know what other game maximizes the fun while tactically outmaneuvering your enemy?
War and Honor, Rome, Rising Empires.
A game packed with literally everything starts out in 219 BC.
6 nationalities battle it out for control of Victory City. Build your army, sail your ships, and hit Control P?
What? Yes, this is a full-on print and play.
Much like this. Sire Blood's BBR4 Lieutenant Dan's World War II board game map that I tweaked the colors on and hung in my kitchen. Like a ball. Rising Empires is a gorgeous Roman-era historical-based tech-progressing complex strategy game loaded with land and sea battle boards, commanders, generals, engineers, fortresses, siege towers, boiling hot oil, and coconut bikinis.
Okay, so I may have made up that last one.
Full disclosure, I was privy to most of this game's development, credited for attribution legalities and general contributions to the rulebook. But this, the most intense, thorough combat experience I have yet encountered.
Think combat from Axis and allies mixed with Risk. 2210 AD to be exact.
Pre-combat starting with ranged weapons, main combat roles, attacking invention, defending invention, general enhancements, defenders can retreat, fortress assault, wall destruction, territory capture.
If you like dice combat, then you'll love this game.
But it's not all chicken wings, hot dogs, and bologna. Utilizing your generals can be overlooked easily. Even though the combat is extensive, it can be viewed as too all-encompassing. Gameplay can run long, not unheard of for complex strategy games, but long is long. Although I did assist in a bit of the rulebook, it is written by a Swedish man, so areas can be a bit wordy. But really, it's not that bad. So, how do you actually win at this complex strategy game?
It's all about keeping secrets.
Letting other players know exactly nothing about your strategy. Much like Quentin finding an overpowered strategy of,
well, let's take a look then.
With character sheets and inventory cards, the rulebook tells you to lay them out like so.
Isn't that just rather convenient that your enemies can look over and figure out exactly what you're up to?
But
it's all about keeping secrets, remember?
The rules say nothing about hiding your inventory cards by laying them face down, giving your enemies exactly 0 idea of the pain they're about to receive. Enemy character attacks. Defense card drops. Another attack, another defense, and so on. Welcome to High Noon's combat mechanic, where your hand decides if your characters live or die, and remaining attack damage is dealt to the defender. The absolute worst possible outcome is getting attacked without playing a defense card, because chunk. But you don't have to worry about that because the combat almost never comes in threes, so it's not, at the very least, overly excruciating. Side note, defending yourself against flying bullets, how do you do that? I think these defense numbers would have to be some sort of quantification of what it means to have bad aiming luck. But I digress. Okay, so High Noon has no dice, but at the beginning of the game, this virus posse rolls 2 dice to set its attack range. But what about dealing out an actual attack? High Noon uses cards for combat. How is this possible if you're using a completely blank deck. Just like the design of this pistol, it's all about the dice. Each blank card is played as a basic combat card, and with attacking or defending, a dice is rolled to determine those respective values, making the virus posse a wee bit unpredictable. A little bit of violence there, a little bit of push over here, depending on your luck. Balanced mechanism. Be happy. Speaking of decks, what about this deck from earlier? Remember how terrifyingly overpowered cutting the deck was going to be? We'll get back to that in a minute, but right now, I want to show you. Each character sheet boasts an ammunition type, gives buffs to your character. The virus posse don't get one. Ah, the beauty of a phase-changing pistol. It can be whatever ammunition type you morph it into. If the virus posse is up against, let's say a Rough Rider, it would now be able to phase change into a rifle, giving it the +1 damage rifle buff. But what if the virus was shooting at a character that doesn't use a ranged weapon, like Kia? Game breaks in half. All done here. Not so fast. The virus simply completes the attack without an ammunition type. But specialty cards like these can also force a phase change. Oh, and for the virus, equipping these doesn't take any action, so go nuts. Well. Where are you hiding that rabbit's foot? Cause when I pull this trigger, my turn's instantly over, and you walk with 4 health. Not exactly the revenge I'd had in mind. I just needed a smaller gun. Best of luck playing those defense cards now. With even more firepower than the repeater rifle coffee strap. We have this, a teensy tiny thing that is more dangerous than any other weapon or exploit in this game. The Pepperbox Derringer. The hidden inventory card that I've been hinting at for the past couple of episodes, and it's only missing one thing to make it the most lethal weapon in the game. Explosive rounds. Meet the Pepper Boombox Strat. It totals 24 damage, enough to liquidate the deadliest of foes.
Got my heart no break you in then.
But it gets even deadlier. What if I told you could unleash a multi-attack that couldn't be defended against? Well, that would sound crazy. That would have to be a glitch. That could utterly destroy the game and its mechanics. There's no way that much firepower could be used in one go. Well, you absolutely can. There you are at the checkout, salivating over your fave munchie. That's when it hits the counter. $1 off bacon-wrapped Australian smoked sun-baked deep-fried gluten-free GMO-enhanced arugula poppers. OM yum. Extremely handsome and completely stunned, the teller stands unprepared for the unseen threat. In an instant, you invert your pocket. Extreme couponers call it the Holy Grail. The goose that's golden. The potato mash train of gravy. The stackable coupon. No one per purchase limit. Virtually unstoppable. And the Pepperbox Derringer behaves in the exact same way. Remember how this game's combat works? An attack, then a defense, rinse and repeat. Well, this card reads, may fire all remaining shots as a free action. Did you catch it? What you probably heard was, after shooting the gun, you get to fire off the rest of the rounds as free action. Sounds reasonable, but that's not what I heard. I heard something a little more exploitative. Hacker, remember? Let's take another look. May fire all remaining shots as a free action. Free action 1. So, what my master hacker mind hears is, fire the gun and then fire the remaining 3 rounds for free. All of the damage from the 4 Derringer shots and 4 explosive rounds stack up. Like a coupon. Into one massive attack. And since one attack only means one defense card, boom! A virtually unstoppable exploit, piggybacking the oh-so-effective Pepper Boombox Strat. Remember this?
Incoming, Quentin!
But how? Quentin's in the back of the bank, all alone. Well, let's rewind a little bit further. The rulebook reads, windows serve as portals in walls that allow players to shoot through and take cover behind. They couldn't just say a window is a window. So guess who can now spawn window portals? At the end of the virus's turn, as a free action, it can open a portal from one window to any other, auto-closing at the end of the virus's next turn. Portals can be used by anyone. It's all making sense now. Early in the game, the virus opened a portal. Quentin fires through that portal, wounding the virus. In response, the virus tosses in explosives. But what if I told you the virus could do something even more cray-cray? Something so extreme it requires the spawning of a second type of portal. A portal to seemingly nowhere. A portal for dark blackness. Nothing. You're currently observing through the eyes of the virus. But if we swap perspectives, there it is, standing braced in almost a trance, slowly repossessing. Ooh, wait. Think back to the beginning of the episode.
What is a board game virus?
What are hacks? And will this really reignite players back to the table? With a different take on the same game. So the virus as an expansion replacement? Well, that would come down to how powerful is too powerful. Think about it. A virus can only be as malicious as the game hacks it's feeding on. Game hacks that were mistakenly generated by the board game's creators. So, a game that has been through our gauntlet testing comes out almost de facto virus immune. But what about a board game prior to our gauntlet testing? A game like High Noon, one infected with our virus. A virus that starts every game here, suspended amidst the black, only surfacing after all other posses have completed their first turn, meaning the virus evades first round attacks.
But this is not the start of the game, and the virus is not here just to evade attacks.
Using an action, a black window portal can be cast, one only the virus can enter. At the start of its next turn, the virus glitches through the black portal into the dark void.
An ability only allowed once per game called Going Dark. And it's not just evading combat that makes this ability so desirable.
It's what the virus portals back to the surface with at the start of the following turn, repossessing 3 health. 1, 2, 3. That's all you get. Better start praying. It's like with blocks. When you're convinced that with careful gravitational negotiations and those 3 anchor digits that your 4-hour infinity build will in fact not topple.
Okay, so
This is a maxed out hand in High Noon, forcibly adding those 3 new cards at the end of your turn. Discard old cards if you must, cause you're never allowed past 12. That's all well and good, but just like building blocks, you can add an infinite number of expansions to High Noon.
So?
Well, where do all your cards go when you're defending against 6 other posses and also dealing out your own attacks on your turn? Gone. And now you're screwed, never being able to replenish your hand. Just like with building blocks, this game topples hard while trying to defy gravity with its allocated 3-digit cards per turn. So here's my fix. If you're playing with more than 4 posses, simply add a card that you can draw every turn per extra posse. Way back in episode 5, I lied. I deceived you. To keep the mystery, you're watching Quentin Leroy die on screen.
Yes.
The Quentin Leroy. And you're given almost 0 info about it. That's because the death was almost immediately erased. I then lead into this text screen. 3 turns prior. But this text screen should have actually read, well, let me explain this first. We learned way back that this thing is not mentioned even once in the rulebook. You can't find this pocket Frankenstein in the rulebook anywhere. Victory is declared at the end of 12 rounds. 12 rounds. 12 circles. That's my best guess. But back to our deceitful text screen. It should have actually read time dilation to 3 turns prior. Posses retract their steps, health is returned, and dead characters regain consciousness as time dials backwards. Yes! I've officially introduced time travel into a board game. First ever? Let me know. Using a character's death as a catalyst, once per game the virus can infect the turn track to dial everything 3 turns back. But why my death? Well, a dead virus can't infect a turn tracker, now can it? His only hope is to find a weakness amongst the posses and exploit it. A weakness like my barely breathing gang after a massive bank shootout against the sheriff and Colonel Rogers' men. Dialing back time doesn't return cards to your hand. Our hands left empty of Leroy gang defense cards. So it's the perfect setup to ensure the slaughter of my entire gang. But after the 3 turns were replayed, I coincidentally ended up back here in the exact same spot as 3 turns prior. Except for this time, I was the only one of my gang left alive. The virus took everything. Even the plan to rob this bank, then a big train heist, all to fund my brother and I's exit from crime. God. The opportunity to finally get revenge on the sheriff for murdering my parents in cold blood. Almost gone. With only 1 health left, it was very apparent that the promised change in fate was nothing more than the virus's attempt to exterminate my posse. But fast forward to this final turn. With my health recovered, Deputy Gates dead, and now my final action, while staring down the barrels of my pepper box loaded with explosive rounds.
Well, it looks like you failed your little extermination virus.
But my time traveling mechanic in this game is a bit clunky. It either requires meticulous note-taking or a perfect group memory. Neither is ideal. So that is where my challenge and you come in. Create a simple and smooth time travel game mechanic element, but without the game being themed around time travel. And I'll even offer a free gauntlet playtest and promotion right here. By the way, one of the first games I ever made. What you're watching is a throwback to the chilling opening scene of this series, with 1 entire year poured into this very episode. Looking back, I've changed quite a bit, and I'm happier now. What's the secret? Removing those who actively hold you back, and embracing those who help push you forward. By now, you're well acquainted with posse decks, 3-card draws, and the strict 12-card hand limit. But what if I told you that half of your posse deck is now plotting against you? However, you're about to learn that removing posse members does anything but push you forward. With a population of 3, Elsu's warband shares a 40-card deck, seemingly evenly distributed amongst the characters. That includes a 22% overlap between 2 of them. However, Sheriff Garrett and Deputy Gates have a deck close to a 50-50 card split, with no overlap. So, what happens when a posse member takes a permanent dirt nap? You might be thinking, hey, dead character just means dead cards in your hand. And you'd be spot on. However, just when you assumed that it was game over for those cards, think again. In a terrifying twist, those dead cards, they assume a life of their own, lurking in the shadows, waiting for their moment. Approach those freshly drawn 3 cards with extreme caution, especially if you're the sheriff after a recent bank shootout. I'm calling it posse hand paralysis. Quentin Leroy is well aware of the extent of the sheriff's suffering. Sheriff, I'm getting tired of pointing guns and laughing at you. Let's recap. You unloaded on my gang before and after the virus rewind, leaving only Deputy Gates' cards in your hand. And now that his organs are freshly juiced, your hand has become utterly useless. Uh-oh. Even if the discard deck gets a reshuffle, the sheriff's best chance of drawing his own card remains locked at around 50-50. So, depending on your deck, one deck has the ability to paralyze your entire posse. This game is fun, so why would you do that? See, this is the kind of stuff that we catch in the gauntlet testing. This blows my mind! Blows it! My solution? Remove the dead cards as they're drawn and consider restricting the more powerful ones still in play.
What you waiting for? I think we're ready to rock.
I hold death in my hand and every reason to pull the trigger, avenging my parents, brother, and gang. But I won't. See, this virus has taught me something profound, and I won't be shedding any more blood, Sheriff. Just so happens that I'm not the only one that you've wronged. Sheriff, in life, nobody escapes their reckoning. Boys, he's all yours. Game end. And I bet you're wondering how many hacks I found in High Noon. I'll show you those in a minute. But first, we made a virus and found a replacement for all board game expansions. Oopsie. I wonder what we're gonna do in the next video. These are High Noon's totals. Would be interesting to see how many I find in your game.